What is up, friends? Let's learn the best way to build a tabs component. Now, I've built a number of different tabs components, mostly for plugins and Squarespace. I got a lot of them, but this is a good HTML structure that I have landed on when building all of these that gives me the most flexibility in design, layout, smoothness as I am building these. So let me just quickly show you an overview. This is nice because the content sort of slides left and right. Again, we can turn that off so it just appears. But what's also nice is the height of this tabs component grows and it shrinks. It's very smoothly. It's really nice. And then I'll show you how to do this. You can easily add on some different attributes. Vertical, so we can have our tabs over here on the left where the content slides left and right. And if you want to animate it up and down, we'll just throw in the animate in the Y direction really quick. And we can see that it'll animate up and down like that. So you can do some really nice things. Let's jump into building this right now. Okay, most tab components are some variation of what we have here, where you click on the tabs, it just shows the content, and you get this jumping around effect if the content height isn't the same for each individual tab. And if you force that, you're going to get some overflow. It just looks a little weird. So this is it's some variation of this JavaScript, whereas I click on tab 2, it goes to the tab 2 panel and it gives it some display property and hides all the other panels. Hides tab 1, hides tab 3, hides tab 4. And that's basically what I got set up right here. So we've declared all of our variables. We're looping through all of our tab buttons and setting a click action on each one of them, a click event on each one. And as you click it, we're handling the active tab. We're going to loop through all of our panels. If I click on tab 3, then I want panel 3 to open. I want to open panel 3. I want to close all the other tabs. And here is our open tab. To open it, we're just giving it a display of grid. And to hide these others, we're doing it a display of none. So what I want to do in this video is sort of reorient the way you think about tabs from instead of like showing and hiding to we're just shifting. We're just moving something left and right. JavaScript can do this really, really fast. So you don't see any transition. I mean, it doesn't even really transition. It just it effectively display nones and display shows. But we can show, it gives us the option to show that transition if we want, like I showed you in the intro, and we can reorient its layout to a vertical layout very simply without just a bunch of extra JavaScript. So to get this to work, it's important we have our HTML structure and our CSS structure correct. So this part is very important, getting our HTML and CSS structure. So let's look at how this is set up. So this is the way I like to set up not just tabs, but anything with repeating elements like buttons or panels. Anything with repeating elements, this is the structure. So we have our container, and then within the container, we have a wrapper. And then within that wrapper, we have the item. So for our buttons right here. For our panels, same thing. We have our container, then we have our wrapper, and we have our panels. Now, this is a good structure because it allows us to be very declarative about how we want our wrappers, the items within our wrapper to be laid out. That is different from how we want our containers to be relative to their children, their siblings, I should say. So we can it gives us the most flexibility for laying out our panels and laying out our buttons. And it gives us a lot of flexibility to move stuff around really easily with just a few lines of CSS. So this structure is important. We have a container, we have a wrapper, and then the items. And you'll want to repeat this often with a bunch of different components that you build. So next, let's look at our CSS. So what we don't want to do, let me get rid of all this because that's going to be what we are writing. And in JavaScript, let's just hide these. Let's comment those out. So no JavaScript is really running effectively right here. So this is the general HTML structure. If we don't have any JavaScript running, we have our buttons up here that are next to each other. And then we have our tab panels down here that are just going to sit right on top of each other like that. So what we want to do instead of show hiding, we want to align them left to right and move that entire container. This is our wrapper. We want to move the wrapper left and right. So the way we do that is on our panels wrapper right here, display flex. We would just want to do display flex. And then all of the children items on a flex element are going to line up left and right. So we're not really going to be looking at our buttons. We're focused on this. All of our panels are going to be left to right because our panels wrapper is display flex. Once we've done that, I can say flex grow 1, flex shrink 0 on our sections, and this will make each section the full width because we're not going to shrink it down to fit within its container. Each one is going to be the full width like this. So we move left and right. That's really nice. And now all we need to do, so now we have our wrapper right here. Effectively, what we're going to do is on our container, that's the outer element right here, we're going to say overflow hidden. There we go. And then we're just going to move these items around. We can do that. Move this wrapper. We're going to say transform, translate. We're going to say in the X direction, negative 200 pixels, just to give you an idea of what we're doing. Translate 3D. Let's just move it left. So you can see what we're doing because we've added this overflow. We're not seeing the other elements. But if I hide that overflow, you can see we still have all the items in there. So we're going to keep that. And we're just going to move our wrapper. We're just going to move this wrapper element left and right. We're going to transform it left and right using this first value in our translate 3D, so our negative 200 pixels. So that is what we're going to be doing with our JavaScript. So let's get rid of this because we don't want to set that with our CSS. We're going to leave that there. And then in our, so we don't need to really change anything except our open tab function. So how far do we want to move our element? How far, let's make this unhidden. How far do we want to move our wrapper? Left and right. How far? Well, if I click on tab 3, I want to move this entire container to where the left edge of tab 3 is on the left edge of the container here. That's what I want to do. So that is the distance between the left edge of our container and the left edge of this. We can just easily get that. It's what's called the offset left. So we'll just say, create a variable. Offset left here is going to be our active tab, which is our panels wrapper, or our tab panels, I'm sorry. So our tab panels index. So this is our active tab, the tab number that we're passing in on our group of tabs. That number, the third, let's just say, for example, the third, offset left. So that is how far left it is. And then all I have to do is grab our wrapper. And then I'm just going to say offset left is going to be equal to offset left, say plus, oh, no, not this. Panels wrapper, we're going to say style.transform. This is that style property. This is going to be translate. It's going to be in the negative direction. Translate, offset left, that many, we got to use our curly brackets here, that many pixels, and then 0 in the Y and 0 in the X. So that's what we're going to do right here. So now this should work. And it's not working right off the bat. So let's see what is causing our issue. Transform, translate 3D. That's what this needs to be. Translate 3D. So now let's see if that works. There we go. That is looking pretty good. So sometimes, let's open this up in a new window. So sometimes you'll see this. You'll see where it's not really offset. Sometimes even the original one, it's like a little off. And that's because we need to add position relative to our container. Position relative, right there. Position relative to our container, and let's add it to our wrapper too. I like to be declarative with our containers here. So let's just hit save and refresh it over here, and we should be nice and aligned. So there we go. So now this is overflowing. So the only thing we have to do is get rid of this overflow hidden. Then we can save. And now you see it just shows the right tab. So we have another issue. So you can see, oh yeah, it's not moving. But as we have this overflow hidden, as we moved it to flex, you notice the heights of all of these became the exact same. So it automatically stretches the items of these things. So instead of display flex, we want to keep display flex there, but we want to use the align items is going to be start. That's going to mean each item is going to be its normal height. So now we're back to an issue. Let's get rid of our overflow. Now we're back to an issue where you can see our container. It's not jumping around, but it's always the height of our largest element. And that's not what we want either. We want it to be as tall as, the active tab. So that's a relatively straightforward change we can make right here. So let's say right here, we're getting the offset left. Let's get the offset height. And it's going to be the same thing. We're going to grab the active panel and we're going to say offset height. And we're going to change our panel's wrapper style.height. We're going to change its height to offset height plus px. Now let's see. Let's hit save on this. And now we see we're jumping up and down. And now what's nice about this, I have to get my dog. She's scratching at the door. She's an old lady and she kind of gets what she wants. Come on. So now we have this same issue where it's jumping up and down. But besides, if you do display grid, display none, you can't transform anything. It's just like adding it onto the DOM and removing it from the DOM. But if we're just changing the height, we can transform or transition. We can't transition anything. We can transition that height. So that's what we want to do. On our, what are we changing? Our wrapper right here. What are we changing? Yeah. So I'm going to say transition height 0.3s ease. So now once that saves, look how nice and smooth that is. Easily moves up and down. And we're transitioning the height here. We can easily add a comma and say transform. Let's transition the transform. Same thing. 0.3s ease. And that's what's going to allow us to see it move left and right. Do you see how simple that is? We just added a few lines of JavaScript. We don't even need our close tab right there. So we can close this out of our, we're just deleting a bunch of code right here. It's very simple with just a little bit of CSS. And it was really important to get your structure in place. So this looks really nice. So let's add another adjustment here. What if we want this to go up and down? And what's cool about this, we don't need to really change anything. We can always let this be an option. So let's do the other thing that we need is we just need to change the direction of our items right here. So I'm going to go to, where am I looking here? Overflow hidden. Okay, so I'm going to go overflow hidden so we can see this left and right. And our display, by default, the items are going to go left and right. But why don't we say flex direction column, right? And now these items are going to go up and down. But of course, none of this is going to change. The height of it is going to change because the active height is changing. But it's not moving up and down. What's nice, we don't need to remove or change anything. We just need to add something. Instead of our offset left position, let's add our offset top position. We'll say offset top. And then we're just going to throw into this transform, we're going to throw the same thing in. Offset top. So in our Y direction, we're just changing our top. That's the only thing that's changing. And now we can move, and now we probably need our overflow unhidden there. But we can do this now. And now it looks like it's sliding up and down. So that's a really fun effect. And it's very simple. We can leave both of these lines of code in. The only thing that needs to change is, are we flex direction column or are we flex direction row? That's the only thing. This one line of CSS is the only thing that changes. So to do that, we can just throw in, let's say we only want this direction to change right there. Let's just cut that. We say we only want tab panels wrapper to be this when our .tabs has the attribute data animate Y. So this is a really easy way to create a complex component. So by default, it's going to move left and right. And if in my HTML, I say data animate Y, that's the only thing I need to do. And now it's going to move up and down. So that's really fun. Then next, let's try and put these tabs right next to it, see how easy that is. Let's do this same kind of structure. Let's just say data vertical right there, right? The only thing, let's create our core layout here, data vertical. So what I want to do is I need to make our tabs right here. We need to make this a flex component. So it's children. These two children are sitting next to each other. So I'm going to say data vertical. We're going to say display flex. Very straightforward. Then these are going to sit next to each other. And you see we get a little bit of a weird thing going on right there. It's moving up and down. So let's make our container, right? Let's make that width 100%. And let's make our buttons width. Where is our buttons container? These are our, remember, the naming is important. Container, container, buttons container. These are the outer elements that we can control. Let's say width, let's just give this a pretty discrete width, like 150 pixels or something, right? So something like that. And now this is looking a little bit better and we can lay this out the way we want. So our tabs, we only want this, of course, to happen. We have data vertical going. So let's say data vertical, we want our wrapper, which is the controller, the layout controller for our buttons. So our tab buttons wrapper, this to be display flex and flex direction column, like that. So these are going to sit on top of each other, and let's give this a gap of 17 pixels. Let's give our this a gap of 17 pixels to give some spacing right there. Ooh, 17 is way too much. Let's give 8. And then we want these items, let's say our wrapper, we want this to be the height. We want this to be the height of whatever the active tab is. And then because we're display flex, we can use justify content to be center. And that's going to center it up right there in the middle. And now we have this really nice component, moves it up and down, left and right. And so just with a little bit, and notice we had to get these different layouts, we didn't have to change anything in our JavaScript. Nothing. We just needed to add an attribute in our HTML, and just a little bit of CSS gives us all of this flexibility. So this is my preferred way to build tabs. There's a lot going on in this, but let me know if you use this anywhere. Would love to see demos. Put it down in the comments, and have a good day.